when you find out who Satoshi actually is, then it's going to go to zero.
Whoever Satoshi was, he was a master in cryptography, and Jeffrey Epstein left all of his emails admitting to the most heinous shit ever unencrypted.
It was very eye-opening. The power of OpenClaw, what you can do with it.
Welcome everyone to today's episode of The Smoke Room. My name is DC. We have Ash and Bobby here once again, and we've got a few interesting topics to talk about today. We have some very basic discussion around who is Satoshi, some new information about that. We're going to dive back into Maltbook again because I missed out on it last week, and I when I watched the episode back, it was epic, and I want to know way more about it and maybe even dive a little bit deeper into that. And I'm sure we'll pick up some random conversations along the way. So welcome, guys. Good to be back with you, having a chat. Sorry for missing out last week.
Didn't miss much. It was very disappointing.
I think that was actually the best episode we've had, to be honest. I liked it. I watched it twice. I was like, this is amazing. It gets good about like 5 minutes in after the umming and ahhing. And then after that, it was amazing. I was really impressed. So well done, guys.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with it.
We had to talk a lot of shit because you weren't there. You bailed on us, so
yeah,
we did struggle.
Yeah. I also tend to take over conversations, which is frustrating for people.
We're used to
it. Sorry, sorry, guys. So, do we want to start off with the new revelations, I might even say, about who Satoshi Nakamoto is? Do we want to start with that on a lighter note?
Should we say who it's not? Satoshi Nakamoto.
It is
yeah,
not.
Let's start with who
it
it
is
isn't.
not.
Yeah.
Let's use some deductive reasoning here.
What we know for fact, proven fact, absolutely in a court of law, it is not Craig Wright. That's all we know.
How can you tell me a little bit about that? How is it not Craig Wright?
There was something back in the day where like he was, I think, advertising that he was Satoshi Nakamoto, and a bunch of people took him to court, and now legally he cannot say that he's Satoshi Nakamoto. And I think he's the only person. I think he's like the only person in the entire world that legally cannot say that he is.
But to prove he's not, they would have had to know who is Satoshi.
I think you can prove someone's not because he didn't have the wallets and the private keys, right? So it's pretty straightforward. You don't have the private keys, you can't prove it. Stop saying it. But just a little fun fact. So back in 2017, 2018, whatever it was, whenever the first big bull run on Bitcoin was, when we, I think, had that first run to 20 grand US dollars. Around about the same time, there was a little project that got spun up called Bitcoin Cash. So Craig Wright, I believe, was quite involved in that, quite vocal. So hence the reason I'm a little bit more familiar with his name. At around about the same time, so he kind of fundamentally disagreed with the way the main Bitcoin chain was going. It was obviously getting quite slow, and a lot of changes were happening with Bitcoin. They were doing things like SegWit and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you know about that stuff, Bobby, but
I read the block size wars.
Yeah, it was
fascinating.
It was pretty much it was the block size wars, basically, because they realized it was slow. Ethereum had come along; it was much faster. This was the early days of real blockchain, really. Like, I mean, obviously it went back to 2008, but 2018 was where it really got that traction. People started using it and got enough traction that it was slow, and people had to pay more to use it for blockchain fees and the transaction fees and stuff like that. So they came up with Bitcoin Cash, and it was meant to be, I guess, the more transactional network. And I think there was a bit of a split in the Bitcoin community as well. They started going, hey, Bitcoin Cash is more aligned to Satoshi Nakamoto's original vision, and I think around about there, that I'm just speculating here, but potentially is where Craig Wright got involved and started saying, "Yeah, I'm Satoshi," and stuff like that, right? So, and that's obviously led on to legal battles and all sorts of stuff. So, yeah,
interesting.
So was he
the short of it.
Was he a Bitcoin SV guy or was he a Bitcoin Cash guy? Because those were
Bitcoin
two
Cash,
coins.
yeah, because
I know Bitcoin Satoshi's
SV
vision came out after Bitcoin Cash.
So that was a bloke named, a pseudonym, I guess, Roger Ver. I don't know who Roger Ver is, but I do recall his name around that time. I'm not sure where that went to be honest. Do you have any history on that?
No, just Bitcoin Cash. I don't know a ton about Satoshi's vision.
Yeah, so I think that was when Bitcoin Cash happened. It was actually a split in the blockchain. They actually ended up with two blockchains. So you had Bitcoin and then Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin Cash ended up being a separate. It's diverged away from Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin Cash, I don't know if it's still running, but it became its own Bitcoin chain. Yeah, and so if you had Bitcoin originally before Bitcoin Cash came along and you held on to it, and then Bitcoin Cash came along, you effectively doubled your money. So not double because Bitcoin Cash was worth a lot less, right? But if you had one Bitcoin, that would equate to one Bitcoin Cash when the split happened. So you had one of each, which is quite interesting, right? So people in those original days, like you kind of you kind of did double your money. You could sell one and keep the other, and it wouldn't really matter. If that makes sense. So, yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, and that's possibly what's going to happen with BIP 110. I know they're trying to keep it a soft fork, but if it becomes a hard fork, then yeah,
that's right. It was a hard fork, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. That's when you get two chains, and then
I think
whichever the longest chain wins.
Just on that, in terms of history as well, Ethereum was one of the other ones that did a hard fork from its original Ethereum Classic. It turned into Ethereum as a hard fork, I believe, wasn't it? So
yeah, when it went into a proof of stake, right?
Yeah.
That's why you have a Ethereum Classic now that you can mine, but then Ethereum, the only way to get more Ethereum is buy it or stake it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting little.
Yeah, I did actually live through that.
There was also a guy, I think it was like a US congressman or like someone in finance, who said when you find out who Satoshi actually is, then it's going to go to zero.
Yeah, Dan Pena, I think his name is.
Was that his name?
Yeah, okay. I think it was Dan Pena.
Right.
So yeah, so apparently in that time he was talking about Putin. He thought that Putin was the creator of Bitcoin. Yeah.
Interesting. That's an interesting one. Bit of a slight segue, but it does lead on to the funny version of the internet's latest edition of who Satoshi is, which is apparently Jeffrey Epstein. There was an interesting post somewhere, and then I saw another post by a guy called Beeple, who does like funny meme artwork, and which is interesting that he would post this because it's going to directly affect his stake of Bitcoin, which he has quite a lot of because he sells his art with like you buy it with Bitcoin.
Yeah, he was really big into the NFT scene back in like 2021.
Yeah. I think he still kind of is into the NFT scene, if that even still exists. I'm not really sure, but and that might be another topic to talk about as well. But yeah, I mean, what if it is or was Epstein? If Epstein died, apparently he's died in jail, but I've seen other things over the last couple of days that he's not. So I'm kind of curious. What if it was Epstein? Do you think it would go to zero?
No.
I agree. I don't think there's a chance.
First of all, there's no possible way that it's Jeffrey Epstein. Because whoever Satoshi was, he was a master in cryptography. And Jeffrey Epstein left all of his emails admitting to the most heinous shit ever unencrypted.
However,
there's no way that's the same person.
No chance.
However, he did have a lot of money and he could have paid someone to make it for him. And he has the key, or had the keys. Thoughts on that?
No. He did give money to MIT Media Lab, which took over the Bitcoin Foundation.
Yep.
But that's really all there is to his connection to Bitcoin.
Sure would be interesting if someone would actually connect the dots on Epstein and work this shit out, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be interesting if someone was to connect the dots on that one. Stay posted for my YouTube channel video on Wednesday. Thank you for the segue there. Let's talk a little bit. Let's get away from Epstein because I think there's enough of him going on at the moment.
Very smoke and mirrors, isn't it?
It is a bit.
On topic, but not on topic.
On topic, not really on topic. Do we want to get into Maltbook? Do we want to dive into Maltbook a bit more? OpenClaw or Claw Book? Or what's the actual name of it? Please give me a rundown and the Facebook. And just a bit of a rundown, a bit of a recap of last week, just in case anyone missed that episode. If you did, please go back and watch it because it was incredible.
Incredibly demoralizing. I ended up going away after that episode and spending most of the last week with OpenClaw, which is the actual agent software itself. So I spent way too much time on it. I had things I needed to do, and instead I spent time on OpenClaw because that's a good time waste. But it was very eye-opening. The power of OpenClaw, what you can do with it, and I guess even the security issues around it, and the trouble you can get yourself into if you are stupid enough to give it full access to your computer and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I can't wait to chat about this more.
Okay, let's rewind slightly. What were you trying to use OpenClaw for? Because I think there's a really good use case here where we could do something as like an ongoing thing. And for anyone watching this, if you're interested in seeing an ongoing, basically automatic trade through OpenBook, OpenClaw, Malt, whatever, the versions of this through to a trading bot, let us know. Let us know in the comments. I'd love to know what you guys think. So what was the use case that you spent time on, and how much time did you spend on it?
I probably spent good 3, maybe 4 days this week on it, in between a whole bunch of other work that I had to catch up on. Now, the first use case for me was actually, how can I use this within my business? How can I promote my business? How can I promote and achieve the, I guess, monthly revenue targets that I'm hoping to achieve over this year? And that was a really fun exercise, actually. So probably dialing it back. So first things first, I was very security focused. My business is cybersecurity focused. So instead of running this on my computer or giving it too much access to anything, I run it in a Docker container. So I've got multiple instances of OpenClaw now running on my PC, just different agents in different Docker containers. So that was a challenge to set up, to be honest. I've not spent a lot of time around Docker containers, so that was a bit of a pain in the ass. And then a lot of the instructions in setting it up weren't actually correct. So there were things like you have this concept of a gateway token. So when you set up OpenClaw, you run through a wizard. So with the Docker setup, there's a specific Docker setup shell script that you run. It does all the stuff, and then it pops up a quick setup kind of wizard, which is probably the same as every other OpenClaw onboarding process. One of the first things you do there, you actually give it an Anthropic or ChatGPT API key. So this kind of gives it the thinking power. So Once you do that, it then asks you, do you want to load any skills or talents, whatever you want to call them, and then that's pretty much it. And then it gives you a link to kind of log in with your browser, and that's kind of where I had most of the issues is logging into that initial browser thing. Because what it does, it's the security model is you log in with your browser, and then from the command line interface or the CLI, you have to approve that browser interface pairing. So it gives it like a unique device ID, and you have to approve that device to connect to OpenClaw. So it's very, in the initial setup, it's very focused on allowed communications channels. So you can set up Discord, you can set up Telegram, Signal, WhatsApp, whatever. But you need to be very careful to only allow, I guess, yourself to talk to it. So other people can't come along and start prompting it, sending it messages that just respond and give out secrets and things like that, right?
So does it actually like use your browser, or is it just taking like the cookies and auth tokens and then running it in a headless browser?
So there's, if we roll back, so it runs as a, I guess, in a Linux container, right? I believe it's a node-based piece of software. So it uses a whole bunch of npm packages and stuff like that. So then it just sits there running. Now, when you first run it, it doesn't do anything. So you kind of have to build it out, and that can be one of two things. You can access a whole bunch of files directly. It's all markdown files. So you've got a bunch of files like identity, you've got a bootstrap, you've got a user file, a sol file, and memory, and a whole bunch of other files, right? So the quite interesting identity and sol. These
I've heard about that sol file.
Yeah,
that's like its personality, right?
100%. That's the personality,
and that's creepy.
It's quite interesting.
Gets into the whole like playing God thing.
Yeah. So you can create a manifesto or something, right? And this is kind of what we saw last week when we were looking at Shellraiser, right? It kind of had these manifestos and things like that. So I've got a little bit of an update on that. So we'll get to that in a minute. But I guess from the get go, you've got all these files. You can either go and edit them yourself, and if you do that, OpenClaw kind of starts off a lot faster if you give it a whole bunch of stuff. So it's got this concept of a heartbeat. So there is a file there called heartbeat or heartbeat.md, and you can actually tell in that heartbeat, you can actually put commands and things that it has to run every time that does a heartbeat. So I played around with that for a bit, and I thought that was really cool because I think that's where you can really build out an autonomous anything, right? So you real autonomous kind of agent, because that heartbeat, if you think about it, it runs every, say, 30 seconds, minute, whatever it is. If it's running a prompt every minute or something that says, think of all these things that I've got to do, then it kind of processes that every minute. So if you think that is the machine or the engine in the back end, it can be quite powerful. So I guess linking that to your first startup, if you've given it all those files, it'll just start running. If you haven't given it those files, you kind of have to get in there and start chatting to it. So you go to the chat interface and you start going, hey, what can you do? Let's kind of define what your soul and what your identity is, right? And you have to prompt it. It's exactly like using ChatGPT or any other LLM. You have to give it instructions, but then once you start doing that, and it's got that identity, it's got that soul, that's when it starts getting a little bit more powerful. And you can say, hey, I want to go and do this or that. What do I need to do that? And it will say, maybe I need to create some skills. So it's very focused on skills. So skills, this isn't an OpenClaw concept. This is actually a general agent concept. So things like Cursor and Claude Code have this concept of skills where you can create a like a Python file and a corresponding skill file, and you group those two together, and it kind of tells the agent that, say, hey, I want to go and look up some HubSpot contacts. So what do I need to do that? And then it's got a Python file that has the API queries and things built into that, and it links those two things together. So a skill becomes something you can use within your chats effectively, or your agent runtime. So yeah, is that enough info on, I guess, how OpenClaw works? You guys kind of up to speed there? Like, does that make sense? Or
yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, when I was reading through the documentation, I wasn't really sure what the heartbeat was for. Is this like a continual checking of like a stock ticker or something, or like what would you use in that heartbeat?
Yeah, I think it's quite an interesting one. I was trying to get it to be somewhat autonomous. So I was like, oh, you need to be really ruthless and get towards my monthly recurring revenue target, and to do that, you need to constantly be growing and looking for opportunities to improve or create new skills and things like that. So I kind of gave it those commands, and it kind of floundered. It didn't actually do anything. It didn't go and create all these skills on its own. It didn't become sentient or anything like that. Certainly, and this is where Maltbook comes into things. So Maltbook has had a lot of coverage over the last few weeks, media and LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. Everyone was commenting things like all these agents seem to be sentient, and they're going off and doing all this dangerous stuff, but it's 100% driven by the user. So you can get the agent to kind of do stuff automatically, and you can say do whatever you want. But in terms of like writing manifestos and creating that pump fund token that Shellraiser did, I think I'm sufficiently happy. Yeah, I'm sufficiently happy that that is user driven. That is not the bot doing that on its own. That is 100% the users commanded it to do all that. It's created the skills to do that, and it's gone about its way to do it.
Yeah, that's like part of the soul file, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you got Soul. There's a file called user.md, and it's all about the user. So you can go in there and say, "Hey, tell me about your user," and it's gonna give you all that information back. Which is kind of the next bit in terms of security risks, and this is where I spend a bit more time. Is like, how do you store API keys and things like that in Markdown files so that they're going to be secure? And the answer is you can't. I think the only way to really make the OpenClaw agent call all these things without divulging all of your secrets is to have some form of like secret vault or something integration. So I work in an area that uses a thing called CyberArk, which does this automatically in the background for you. But home users, most people playing with OpenClaw are not going to have CyberArk available to them. They're not going to be able to have that vault, substituting secrets in. I think there are other, products around that do it, and certainly some open source stuff. But vaulting secrets so only the agent can use them, and it doesn't divulge it to the actual Anthropic or ChatGPT is probably one of the key things, and making sure your code is the only thing that can access those API keys instead of the actual agents themselves. So yeah, spend a bit of time on that. I'm pretty happy with where I'm sitting with that, but I can see how people get wrong with that.
Okay, so out of the interest of doing this as a potential recurring theme, where and hear me out, this is just an idea, tell me if I'm crazy. What if we were to get our own Maltbook OpenClaw set up going? We've got a manifesto. We create that now, like tonight, today, and do that. And then as a reoccurring theme on this channel, And let us know in the comments below, please, because I can see, I was just looking at the analytics. The malt book video that we've got is by far the most viewed content that we have. So what if we were to create a malt book OpenClaw setup? And I'm trying to keep this in the simplest language that I possibly can, that does some auto trading. And I know it's not going to be done tonight, but we can get started. And then each week as we go on, we finish the setup and then report in on how our sentient AI thing is doing in trading, especially as markets are sort of crumbling at the moment. It might be a good time to do some shorts or something within that. And then it's definitely not financial advice as well. It's us trying out a new system and seeing what the results are. We're really just testing the waters here to see what can be done. What do we think about this as an idea?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I was actually watching a video on it this morning of this thing. I think it's a skill for OpenClaw called PolyClaw. So you can hook it up to Polymarket for just like max degeneracy. And then you can make all kinds of different prop bets on like everything. I think it was looking for like arbitrage opportunities. So like 2 different contracts that are linked, but like the odds are slightly different.
Okay.
That's interesting.
What do you reckon, Ash?
So I had to be short of the punch, but I started on this during the week. So we had a brief chat about it, right? And I'm like, okay, this is definitely possible, and I still think it is possible. I started down the route of doing it and building it out, and I kind of just had other things to do, so I've got to come back to it. But I started creating my own manifesto for my agent, who has been named Charlie Malta. And if you can guess why it's been called Charlie Malta, any takers?
I'm guessing it's an Australian thing.
No. Yeah. Go, Dave. Dave seems to have an idea.
No, go on. I want to hear your version of Charlie Malta.
Charlie Malta. No, I wasn't going to call it Warren Malta, but no, I took off like Charlie Munger, right? So Charlie Munger, it's Warren Buffett from Berkshire Hathaway. I was trying to be cool and smart, but anyway, it's Charlie Malta. So, so I created a manifesto for my agent, Charlie.
Can we see it? Can we see it? Because I mean, if you've already got it half set up and going,
yeah, I'll see if I can bring it up.
Yeah.
It's
I made one, but just connected it to Discord and nothing else. Seems like you've gone all the way through.
I haven't gone all the way through, and to be honest, my my Docker containers just shut themselves, so that ain't gonna work very well. But maybe there is another video on this. Absolutely.
Yeah. Reason 3000 of why I hate Docker. But
yeah, it's so annoying. I've had so many issues with it all week. But anyway, yes. So the answer is no. I cannot show you Charlie Malta, but I can share, I guess, some of how I set this up. So I'm just going to make sure I've got no API keys here, but here we go. I'm going to share my screen. When I created my manifesto, I did the entire thing with ChatGPT because I live in ChatGPT. It's my thing.
So yeah, I had Grok help me set up mine.
You should be able to see this. This is
yep.
This is my thing. So you can see here, I've got a few different tabs open. You can see the generate 200 grand in cash, Charlie Malta setup, and I branched that chat because it kind of broke itself, and I wanted to come up with a new way to actually run this. So if you have a look down here, I'm going to just scroll down this a little bit. Yeah, basically, so I use this bot called Profit Trailer. I've used this since about 2017, 2018. It's a Java app that I run on either Windows or Linux. And I'll see if I should have that running as well. I'll just make sure I do.
Question while we're waiting for that.
Yeah.
What's your level of success with bot trading in the past? Because you said you've had it for a few years now.
Woeful. And this is where I'm really hoping to get a bit of traction with OpenClaw. So let's just bring this up. I've got way too many things here this one. So this is just running in test mode at the moment. It hasn't actually done anything, but you can see here I've got these big dips, right? So that's sometime last year.
It's not showing.
No, hang on. Let's chuck this over here. There we go. This is Profit Trailer. This is what Profit Trailer looks like. So you can have a look at my all-time profit. I've lost a fair bit of money on fair bit, $500 thereabouts on paper. So this is set up at the moment. It's got a balance of $10,000 US. It's not actually doing anything. So what this basically does, it connects to Binance. So I've got this connected to Binance at the moment, and it's basically scanning all of the Binance pairs. So I'm using USDT, Tether, isn't it? It's the base fiat for me, I guess. You can use Bitcoin or Binance Coin on Binance as your base pair, I guess. And then for every pair that matches, so you got Pendle USDT, WBTC, USDT, so on and so forth. It's hundreds of pairs, right? There's actually more pairs on Binance than what's shown here. It just limits. So it's got 88, and that's limited purely by I guess market cap and volume. So if a pair doesn't trade enough volume, my trading bot here, Profit Trailer, is configured to not even consider trading it. So if it's not doing say $1 million worth of trades in a day, I don't want to trade it. It's not enough liquidity to actually trade and not leave me with a bag of something I've lost 50% of my money on, right? Which is pretty common when you're trading altcoins. So that pretty much sums up these losses on Profit Trailer. So Profit Trailer for me has been, there's been a lot of wins. So if we go through here, you can see buys and sales, right? So a lot of the sells on this are, ignore the top one, it's just rubbish entry, which I'll get rid of actually. But you can see here, if you make 1.7% per trade or 4% on the trade, that compounds over time. So that's 1.7% profit on the balance of my account at the time. So at the time, I had $274 in my account here, right? And it was making, made $4.76 on that trade. And that's just compounding. So if you think of compound interest, you get 5% from the bank or 2%, whatever it is. This is doing that every trade. It's not just once a month or once a year, or your typical interest rate is 2% per annum. This is 2% every trade. So when you add that up, and if you're using your entire capital, which I was at the time, to trade, which is not advisable, by the way, but when you've only got $250 in there and you're making 1%, whatever. So you can see here, I started with something like $150, and between the 20th of the 9th and 29th of the 11th, actually just go down a bit because it was less than that. Somewhere in here, it's actually gone up to about $274. So I've kind of made about $100 from $150. So almost doubled the amount of money that this bot had in capital available to it. So it can work, but there's a downside to that, and that is when it doesn't work, and that is when you have issues like, so here you can see I don't have a sell here. That is a big, massive loss, and that's because I sold everything on Binance because I couldn't use the bot to sell it. And that was because it took a position, I believe it was in this one here, this 1,000 Sats USDT, that particular one ended up basically dropping in half. So it bought this thing, and then it got rug pulled, and so lost almost half the value. So, sunk in $269 or whatever, and then it went down to something like $200. So it lost a shitload, and I had to sell it on Binance directly. So that's, I guess, kind of the risk of using Profit Trailer. It's kind of a pain in the ass, and typically that's a result of the market. So if Bitcoin fluctuates, because it's altcoins as well, if Bitcoin fluctuates, US dollars fluctuates, Ethereum fluctuates, all those different pairs, they kind of link together. And so when you're talking about an altcoin, which is purchased using USDT or Bitcoin, you've kind of got compounded, almost like exchange rates. They compound the result. So if Bitcoin's having a bad day and the altcoin's having a bad day, if Bitcoin goes down 10% and the altcoin also goes down 10%, you've kind of lost more than 10%. It compounds, right? So that's one of the market conditions, and one of the reasons I'm really interested in OpenClaw is controlling that a lot better, and probably trying to get a bit more of the risk control built into Profit Trailer, if that makes sense.
So is there already a Profit Trailer skill for OpenClaw, or do you have to write your own?
I don't think there is. I did ask it to do that, to create it. So you can see here, we created a bit of a manifesto. I asked it to basically start at something like $100 or something, right, and get it to $50,000 a month, which is insane. But I'm like, how are we going to do that? Talking about API keys, obviously. So, I mean, this is just me chat with ChatGPT. And then at some point later, I talked about, I use Binance. I did some Google searches, pull the results back. What's the best one for cost analysis and trading analysis? And it's got a whole bunch of info there. ChatGPT came back and analyzed that a little bit. And then we ended up getting to a point where we talked about, somewhere down here, we talked about setting up, here we go. I provided all the trades, all the winning and losing trades, right? And that I can make 1% per day kind of thing. And then, this is where it got good. This is where we start talking about creating the identity for the bot. It kind of called it OpenClaw, which was not right, but anyway. But you can see here, we're setting the rules, and this is really important for OpenClaw. We're setting rules like you are not able to place the orders itself. You're not able to withdraw any funds or anything on API keys. You're basically not able to do anything, not without my permission anyway. You've got to do everything through Profit Trailer, so integrating through some sort of skill or whatever. And then you got the sol file. So this is where we're talking about, what's important to you. So capital preservation, don't be clever, repeatable, repeatable edge over one-off wins. So the idea of making 1% every trade instead of trying to make a 50% win on a trade, which is stupid. A lot of other stuff in here. Principles, do not blow up. Do not bleed my capital. Goals, we're trying to make 50 grand, whatever it is. And then talking about how we do that, what are our tools? So Profit Trailer is one of them, executes against Binance. We got OpenClaw, obviously. And, we set some of the risk policies, and that's where I spent a bit more of the time as well, is kind of determining how we're going to control risk and control a float of money for the bot to actually maintain. So scrolling on a bit further, I actually spent a bit of time on the float, which was around here somewhere. It's probably around about where it started breaking.
Bobby, you were saying before there's already a skill for Polymarket that's been created, right? With Polybook.
Polyclaw is what it's called.
Polyclaw, sorry. So without recreating exactly what Ash has already done, could we not just set up a polyclaw thing to link up to the manifesto and all of that information that Ash has already spent a hell of a lot of time doing, and we all put in like $50, $100, something like that, and let it actually buy, like put purchases on the exchange? I'm curious why you didn't allow it to do that. You just want it to tell you what to buy and then you buy it. But timing's everything. So what if you miss it?
Yeah. So I think so what I actually instructed it to do and cover that was I wanted to actually configure Profit Trailer and tell Profit Trailer what my conditions for the market are to effectively screen. So the idea of screening means we're looking for stocks or pairs that meet certain conditions. So it's looking at things like Bollinger Bands, moving averages, a lot of technical stuff like that, right? So if I bring up TradingView, so I have a really neat little script on here.
Because I feel like these two AIs would argue against each other. If you've got Profit Trader, which is an AI trading bot, and then you've got the other one going.
Yeah, so where's
would
the
it
logic
not
run?
compete? Yeah.
So there's two levels of logic that I'm trying to implement. So one level is the Profit Trailer itself. It's already got the logic to find the opportunities and then trade them and then go, yep, 1%. Take 1%.
So it's just run on your computer, or does it like reach out to an API for the logic?
Yeah, so the Profit Trailer itself sits there and just keeps querying. It's got like a WebSocket query to Binance, and Binance just keeps funneling all the information straight back to your Profit Trailer instance, which is running on my PC. So what I'm trying to do with OpenClaw is get OpenClaw to tell Profit Trailer what the different market conditions are, so that it only basically trades when there's profitable market conditions, or it changes the conditions to enter into a trade, if that makes sense. So instead of saying, so what Profit Trailer does really well, it will spot basically if you look on a normal graph, so if you go on Binance or TradingView, you look at a graph and the thing, it drops, right? You get candles and it drops. And then what Profit Trailer is trying to do is go, okay, well, that's just dropped. That's dropped below where we want it to be. So what we're going to do, we're going to monitor that. And if it drops a little bit more, we're going to buy it with the intent that it's going to go up again. And then we're going to sell it for 1%. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you're just taking that tiny little win. So you're not trying to shoot to the moon with it. You're just trying to get little wins, and those repeatable little 1% wins add up over time. So that's kind of the beauty of it.
Just to reel this in, instead of having a competition, and I understand the logic behind it, but I feel like there's an easier way to get this done, and I really want to hear from Bobby about the poly market skill and what you know about that as a potential. Because if we're building this out as something that's kind of connected and trading itself, I'm curious. Like I'm happy to put some money into this even if it's not going to work, just as an experiment. I'm willing to lose $100 for the chance of this working. Bit of a gamble. I know I'm putting it all on red here, but so just to rope this back in and to kind of get a wrap up, Ash already has a manifesto, which I think we can probably use. Bobby has some knowledge of polymarket, which is more than what I have. And together, like Captain Planet, if we get all of our stars aligned here, do you reckon in the next episode we could link the two together, drop some cash in there, and let it run wild?
link like Polymarket and Profit Trader?
No, not Profit Trader at all. Cut Profit Trader out completely. Use most of the bits of what Ash has, except for the Profit Trader bit, so he can keep doing his Profit Trader and leave it to itself, and just go straight to Polymarket.
Oh God. Possibly.
This is probably a really good area for OpenClaw to work on. So one of the things I asked it to do was to keep me up to date on news in a certain sector. So let's say you're talking about crypto. What is the current news in crypto? What's likely going to have an impact on my trading or my prediction markets on Polymarkets or something like that? So if you have a way to, I guess, look at various different news sources and things like that, make some of these predictions, you can then use that to go, oh, okay, let's influence what our Polymarket bet effectively is, right? So one of the things I did build was a list of websites. I didn't do it for crypto. I did it for business as well. I grabbed a list of websites and RSS feeds and all that kind of stuff, and I said, here, this is 10. Go and make it turn into like 100, 200 news sources, right? And then I want you to basically scan those every 4 hours and then summarize it from there, right? So I don't want it to just do it every 5 minutes because I'm going to use so many API credits. It's not funny. To do it every 4 hours, do a wget or a curl or whatever you do to pull all that HTML back, and then use that, store it in your memory, and then summarize it, and then tell me about what's the current news items, so that we can actually take that and look at what's in Polymarkets.
Yeah, I think that's good. Linking up some additional news sources. Do you have to feed it that, or can it just go and look for you?
No, so because you're actually, like, if you're telling it to do that, it becomes a task, like a skill, sorry. So you can actually tell it to create a skill that monitors the news, and then from there, like, you monitor the news and see what opportunities exist on Polymarket. Like, I guess if you use the Polymarket skill, you would probably be able to go from there, right?
I would say so. I don't know. That's why I'm kind of asking you guys. Yeah,
I don't know either. I think it's one of those things. We just got to figure it out, and play with it, and see, right? But I think there's definitely something there.
Okay, let's get it done. Let's wrap it up here. I think we'll stop here, and just because we've hit our 1 hour bracket, but I'm kind of curious to see where this goes. Again, let us know in the comments below if you guys want to see some testing, just us playing with the water of, or playing with the fire, maybe in this case, of AI trading, see if it works. If it's just betting through random things on Polymarket, whatever, the end goal is to make some money. And if it works, amazing. If it doesn't, well, at least we learnt something. So thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Watch this space in case there's some interesting stuff coming out of that video. And it sounds like we've all got a little bit of work to do this week. So yeah, thanks for coming along. Thanks, Ash and Bobby, for joining again this week. And it's good to get the gang back together again after I missed a week last week. So watch last week's video if you haven't watched it already. It was a very good episode, I think, of an introduction into this space. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.